What a long fucking Monday. I don't condone drinking, but I do appreciate enjoying the fruits of the vineyards, if you know what I'm saying. These are some of the best TikToks that you asked me to respond to over on Discord. Here we go. If you want to join the Discord server, of course, the link is down in the description below. I have not seen any of these. They are all mental health related, I am told. And we're going to take a look at them, and I'll give you my honest opinion. There are some great mental health pieces on the internet, and there are some terrible mental health pieces on the internet. So I'll tell you what I think about it, and we'll just take a look together, huh? So the first one is this. So let's put the headphones on, take a little listen.
I've been in therapy for 9 years, and I only recently realized that part of the reason I am not getting better is because I have become so masterful at analyzing and dissecting and intellectualizing my emotions. I can talk about it nonstop, and you will think I am an emotion expert. I basically am. I have read so many books, listened to so many podcasts. Like, that is not healing. And the more I do trauma therapy, like EMDR, IFS, and compassionate inquiry, the more I learn that traumatic experiences need to be felt.
I have a thought, but I'm going to let her finish first before I get to my thoughts, because I don't want to jump to a conclusion before I hear the full story. So I already have some things I'm thinking.
And that has nothing to do with intellect, has nothing to do with how well you can talk about your emotions. It's a tricky thing. It's a tricky thing for me to realize in myself and for my therapists. This part of me that's talking right now is the analytical part. And I know, because I know how I look when I talk, and I know my voice inflections, but the parts of me that are traumatized, that really hold my deepest wounds, those parts of me are young. Those parts are pre-verbal even. I needed to unlearn a lot of things, or maybe rather just become aware of when this part of me is taking over in my therapy sessions, because the therapists that I've been with also have not been great about recognizing when I'm getting into that part. And so they just think wow, she's doing great. She's so smart. She's so aware.
Yes.
But I needed someone to be able to see, and I needed to recognize that, oh, I'm intellectualizing. And by intellectualizing, I'm avoiding feeling. We don't need to know exactly what happened to us. We don't even need to speak to have healing experiences, to have space held for us, to feel those things. For so long, I tried to figure out my trauma. It only goes so far to try and figure it out. So consider that, especially if you're someone who's been in therapy for a long time and you feel like you're not getting better. It's a completely different skill to learn how to feel and be present.
Damn, that's true. Oof. Okay, so I've got a lot of thoughts, actually, some great thoughts. First of all, 100%. And it's really the tell of a good therapist when they can identify when a client is intellectualizing and saying all the right things, because it is a trauma response. Especially those who had very critical parents or very judgmental people in their life, or were always expected to be perfect, or were parentified by those people who were supposed to be in charge and taking care of them, protecting them. It is very normal for them to push their feelings down and intellectualize them and say all the right things, because that's how they coped with people who were supposed to be caring for them, but were actually abusive, emotionally abusive, maybe physically and sexually abusive as well. They intellectualize these things. They have to act at an age that's much greater than the age that they are when the trauma is occurring. And so, especially if this individual has had trauma at a younger age, actually dealing with the trauma, she will probably start to act like a child in that therapy session. Not like breaking things or throwing things. I mean, maybe. I haven't had that happen to me though. But probably just bawling and crying and sobbing and needed to be held and needing to be played with, like a card game, or some way to just engage and just say, hey, you don't have to prove anything. You don't have to be good enough. Just you being here is all that's necessary. But big caveat, some people and some therapists think that, well, if you're not crying during therapy, you're doing it wrong. If you're not being emotional in therapy, you're doing it wrong. If you're not sobbing, boo-hooing, whatever, you're doing it wrong. You're not re-experiencing the trauma and really working through it. There are two very different types of people. And this is something that we work through in kind of a distinction that we make as hypnotherapists. There are thinkers and there are feelers, right? Thinkers are the ones who are very intellectual. That's how they process the world and interact with it. Feelers are those who are very experiential in their bodies, and they act different. Feelers tend to be very much into sports, and they're very contact, physical. Oftentimes they're extroverts, right? But not all the time. And then thinkers tend to be very intellectual. They're very inside. They emote through their thoughts. So they actually think their feelings. I happen to be the thinker type of personality, and maybe you are identifying whether you're a thinker or a feeler as I'm talking. But for me, it can be very, very important to intellectualize my feelings and to think them through, because my feelings are so fluid. My experience is so fluid that I can actually think my way into feeling something, which in its own way could be a trauma response, but it's also a part of my personality, right? And so having kind of a bedrock and having kind of a solid foundation of intellectualizing in order to feel safe, so that way you can press into the trauma experience and really heal from it, is very important. Let me give you an example of what I mean, because that may have sounded a little confusing. I would be kind of that genre, right? Very, very pressed. I'm the firstborn, had to be great, had to do 100%, 10 out of 10, straight A's on everything. And so I oftentimes felt parentified growing up, right? I was the one who kind of helped take care of my younger siblings and filled in that role and acted above their years. And people often complimented me on that, not knowing it was kind of a trauma response for me. Right? I need to have that intellectual foundation in order to be safe. I need to read a lot of books. I need to think these things through in order to understand my feelings. But that's not the end of the healing. It's not enough to just understand, because that's my safety bubble. In order to heal, in order to grow, you have to step outside your comfort zone. So what do? This is me. This is just my personal experience. I take that information that I've learned, and then I step out of my comfort zone and start to practice it. Right? A huge one for me has been social media, right? My value growing up and my value that I was taught is you are there to help others. You are there, not to be the shining star and superstar, right? But you're there to be a support person, right? So stepping out and being in the spotlight and stepping out and being kind of number one and really accepting that praise and accepting the congratulations is really difficult for me. Right? But I've stepped into that as a social media creator and accepted that spotlight as a way to confront my own sort of traumas and my own sort of pains. So that's the key there. So I don't want anyone to take this kind of topic and then manipulate it into something that it's not, because it's one person's personal experience. They tend to intellectualize, and they found through their therapy that that is a way for them to avoid the healing instead of growing through the healing. Other people who are very emotional need some intellectualizing. Their emotions are the trauma response. They explode when they experience their trauma. And so intellectualizing for them may actually be the therapeutic solution. So I don't want you to take this as like, this is the cure-all, right? This is the fundamental truth for everyone going through therapy. And that's the number one problem I see on TikTok, honestly, is people share their personal stories that are impactful and powerful and empowering and true. But then other people will take that as 100% fact for everybody. And that's the way that everyone needs to go through it. No. Learn the way that you need to go through therapy and heal from that. That's beautiful. Let's get to the next one.
Have you ever heard the metaphor of the buffalo and the cows?
No,
I have not.
Buffalo and cows, they can both sense when a storm is coming.
I've heard of this.
Terrible rainstorm's coming, they both sense it. And cows, they take off running away. Buffalo, they sense the storm and they run right at it. They run right into the storm. And I compare that to trauma. We're just creating a generation of cows where we're making it okay for us. We just let them run away from it and not deal with it. And the cool thing is cows, as they're running away from the storm, they get tired. The storm catches up with the cows, and the cows keep running. They don't stop. If they stop, let the storm pass. No, they just run with
stay
the
in the storm.
So they're in this misery and shame and guilt. They're in this way longer than
Interesting.
they have to be. The buffalo, they run into the storm, and it's terrifying. Once you get past that first initial scare, that fear, and you get in the storm, and then the storm passes, then they're happy and they're rested, and then they can enjoy what the storm gave them, the water and the grass and all that stuff.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't expect that abrupt end there. Interesting. Here's what I'm thinking. Buffalo, I didn't know. This may be total crap. I don't... I am not well versed on the rituals of the buffalo and the cow, right? But if that's true, right, that's very interesting. I think it's a great metaphor. However, right, this is the caveat. People will say these wonderful stories and wonderful illustrations on the internet, and then people will take them and just like blanket, broad brushstroke paint that over their entire life. Sometimes you need to get out of a bad situation. Don't sit under the fucking rainstorm. Go to a better pasture, right? If the cows are moving to a better pasture, you're like, oh, there's a damn rain cloud over there. I'm going to go over here where it's better. that's a great solution to your life. Don't be a dumbass and run at the terrible things in your life, right? Be like, that sucks. I'm going somewhere else, right? Now, I will say there is definitely some wisdom and even some dream encouragement and nightmare solution to be had with that kind of illustration of the buffalo. One of the problems that I see people have the most often with their nightmares is they try and avoid their nightmares. They have a traumatic experience in their life. They start to have nightmares about that traumatic experience, and then they start to run away from anything that reminds them of the trauma, anything that would help or cause them to confront these nightmares. And that ends up intensifying the traumatic and the nightmare experience. Here's why. Growing up, did you ever have a story about like the Grinch or like Krampus or like the Boogeyman or anything like that, or like someone, well, if you don't eat all your peas, the Boogeyman in the closet will come and get you. And because you never saw the Boogeyman, it was way more terrifying than it ever actually could be. Right. And same thing with horror movies, right? Like good horror movies never really show you in full detail and light the actual monster, or they save it till the very end, right? Because they know that your imagination will fill in the gaps with what's most terrifying to you. Same thing happens with trauma. When you start to confront these things and talk it out, but here's the caveat, talk it out in a safe, empathetic, and caring professional environment, you have a real opportunity for success and to improve your life. And that's the huge thing. So yes, I love the metaphor. It's great, by the way. Maybe it's something that encourages you, but we've got to understand the limitations of this too. Don't just run towards bullshit storms. But if you have a storm in your life that you can't get rid of, maybe it's time to really analyze the situation. Wow, what is going on here? How can I care for myself? Let's confront this. You are strong, you are capable, and your mind will make you aware of problems in your life, whether you like it or not. And if your mind is making you aware of something, it's probably time to go face it and figure out a solution, because you are good enough and you deserve better. So I hope that helps. A lot of these TikTok things are wonderful, but it's TikTok. They only give you half the story, and that's why you keep clicking on it. That's why you keep scrolling, because it's engaging without the full resolution. Little side note there, right? Even my content, oftentimes I don't really give the full explanation, or even I just say dream symbols you should never ignore. And I say the symbol, but not actually what it means unless you go looking in the description, because our brains are wired. If you give someone the full resolution to the story, it actually reduces the dopamine level. So if you look at the way that dopamine works in the brain, dopamine builds as you push toward the object of what you desire, right? Dopamine actually falls off like a straight nosedive down. Dopamine's that good, happy chemical feeling. It nosedives down right before you achieve success. And so if you can build someone up to maximum dopamine level and never actually let them finish and complete the project, you avoid that dopamine crash, and you build their dopamine so they keep watching and you get maximum watch time, and your video goes viral. That's kind of the unfortunate dark psychology behind TikTok. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm spilling the beans here, right? But that's something interesting. So we have to be careful, especially with TikTok and this short form video content. That's why I'm making YouTube videos, so you can see the whole conclusion. Got to be careful with that short form content, because they're not giving you the full story. And so you do have to exercise some clinical and expert, some personal common sense and judgment about these things. Hope that helps. Hope that clears it up. I'll see y'all next time. Bye.